What if I told you that one of the most popular science fiction movies of all time isn't really about computers or artificial intelligence, but about a philosophical argument that's been raging for over 2,000 years? The Matrix didn't invent its central ideas. It borrowed them from some of the deepest thinkers in human history, weaving together concepts that stretch from ancient Greece to postmodern France. Around 380 BCE, Plato wrote what would become one of the most influential thought experiments in Western philosophy, the Allegory of the Cave. Picture this: prisoners chained in a cave since birth, facing a wall, watching shadows cast by objects behind them. To these prisoners, the shadows are reality. They've never seen the actual objects, never experienced the world outside the cave. René Descartes, writing in the 1600s, imagined a similar scenario. What if an evil demon was feeding you false sensory experiences? How would you know? Schopenhauer saw human desire as an endless source of suffering, a force that consumes everything in its path. He believed that the will to live was ultimately destructive, leading to endless cycles of want and temporary satisfaction. Baudrillard argued that, in our media-saturated world, we've lost touch with reality entirely. We live in a world of simulations, copies without originals, where the map has replaced the territory. The red pill represents this existential choice. Neo can remain in comfortable illusion or accept the burden of authentic existence. Morpheus even frames it this way: after taking the red pill, Neo can never go back to ignorance. He's a savior figure who dies and is resurrected, who offers salvation to humanity. But the film also incorporates Eastern religious concepts, reincarnation, the illusion of separateness, and the idea that enlightenment comes through seeing through illusions. He must live with the weight of truth, just as Sartre's authentic individual must live with the weight of absolute freedom and responsibility. The film clearly wants us to choose truth, to take the red pill. But is this always the right choice? If the illusion is pleasant and the reality is suffering, who's to say which is better? It takes concepts that fill entire libraries and makes them understandable through story and action. He's choosing to engage with the fundamental questions that define human consciousness. What is real? How can we know? What should we do with our freedom? These aren't just movie plot points, they're the questions that every thinking person must eventually confront. It shows us that the biggest questions, the ones that have occupied humanity's greatest thinkers for millennia, aren't abstract academic puzzles. It proved that popular entertainment could grapple with serious philosophical ideas without losing its emotional impact. Doing so, it created something rare, a blockbuster that makes you think as much as it makes you feel. They're urgent personal questions about the nature of our existence and the choices we make every day. They showed us that the oldest questions are often the most urgent ones, and that philosophy isn't just academic speculation, it's a guide for how to live. They represent a different relationship to time and causality, suggesting that what we experience as fixed physical laws might be malleable if we achieve the right level of consciousness. This echoes mystical traditions across cultures that claim enlightened individuals can transcend ordinary physical limitations. He coined the phrase "the desert of the real," which Morpheus uses when showing Neo the wasteland that Earth has become. Philosopher Nick Bostrom has argued that if civilizations developed the ability to run realistic simulations, there would be many more simulated beings than real ones. Statistically, we're more likely to be simulated than real. The Matrix doesn't just explore ancient philosophical questions, it anticipates contemporary ones. Instead of reading about Plato's cave, we experience Neo's awakening. Instead of pondering Descartes' evil demon, we see the machines literally feeding false experiences to human brains. Instead of studying Baudrillard's theories about simulation, we watch humans choose comfortable illusion over harsh reality. When Neo asks if he's dead, Morpheus responds that the body cannot live without the mind. This echoes debates about mind-body dualism that go back to Descartes. Are we essentially mental beings trapped in physical bodies? Are mind and body so interconnected that the distinction breaks down? The Matrix suggests both. Consciousness can exist independent of the physical body, but the mind's belief in physical death can still kill the body. Smith's view of humanity as a plague that multiplies until it consumes all resources reflects this pessimistic view of human nature. In a world of theme parks, television, advertising, and digital media, we often prefer the simulation to the original. The Matrix takes this to its logical extreme, a simulation so perfect that humanity prefers it to harsh reality. Even when given the choice, most people would take the blue pill and return to comfortable illusion. His famous conclusion, I think, therefore I am, was his attempt to find one thing he could know for certain, even if everything else was an illusion. The oracle tells him he's not the one, then later reveals she was testing him. This paradox reflects deep questions about predestination versus choice. If the oracle can see the future, do we really have free will? Or are we simply playing out a script that's already been written? These questions have tormented philosophers for centuries. From Augustine's struggles with divine foreknowledge to modern debates about whether free will is compatible with scientific determinism. One day a prisoner breaks free, turns around, and sees the fire casting the shadows. The Matrix doesn't just borrow Descartes' scenario, it literalizes it. The evil demon becomes the machines. The false sensory experiences become the simulated reality. Neo's journey mirrors Descartes' method of doubt, starting with the assumption that everything might be false and working towards some foundation of certain knowledge. Then he's dragged outside into sunlight and discovers the real world for the first time. Today, we're going to trace the philosophical DNA of the Matrix and discover how the Wachowskis turned 24 centuries of human thought into a blockbuster. The journey begins in ancient Athens, in a cave. Sound familiar? Neo's journey from the Matrix to reality follows this exact pattern. He starts as a prisoner, accepting the shadows on the wall as real. When Morpheus tells Neo that reality is an illusion, he's channeling not just Plato, but also ancient Hindu and Buddhist philosophy. The concept of Maya in Hinduism suggests that the physical world is an illusion that prevents us from seeing ultimate reality. Buddhism teaches that our perceptions deceive us, that what we experience as solid reality is actually impermanent and interconnected in ways we can't comprehend. Morpheus becomes his liberator, showing him that what he thought was reality was just a projection. The famous red pill moment? That's Plato's prisoner being dragged into the sunlight, experiencing the painful but necessary awakening to true reality. But Plato's cave is just the foundation. The Matrix builds on this with layers of philosophical complexity that most viewers never recognize. The red pill itself carries deep philosophical weight. It represents what philosophers call epistemological crisis, the moment when everything you thought you knew about knowledge and reality crumbles. Neo faces exactly this Cartesian nightmare. How can he trust his senses when they've been systematically deceived? But the philosophical influences go much deeper. When Agent Smith describes humanity as a virus, he's expressing ideas that echo 19th century German philosophy, particularly the work of Arthur Schopenhauer. The character of Neo himself embodies philosophical concepts about free will and determinism. The most sophisticated philosophical layer comes from Jean Baudrillard, a French postmodern philosopher whose book Simulacra and Simulation appears prominently in an early scene. Baudrillard's concept of hyperreality suggests that simulations can become more real than reality itself. This connects to another philosophical tradition, existentialism. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that humans are condemned to be free, forced to create meaning in a universe that offers none. The film also grapples with questions of identity and the nature of self. The religious symbolism adds another philosophical dimension. Neo's journey follows the classic hero's journey, but with specific Christian overtones. Even the film's famous bullet time effects have philosophical implications. The Matrix's genius lies in how it makes these abstract philosophical concepts visceral and immediate. But perhaps the most profound philosophical question the film raises is one it doesn't answer. Given the choice between comfortable illusion and painful truth, what should we choose? This question becomes even more complex when we consider that our own reality might be a simulation. The film's lasting impact comes from its ability to make philosophy accessible without dumbing it down. When Neo chooses the red pill, he's not just choosing to escape the Matrix. The Matrix succeeded because it recognized that audiences were hungry for these deeper questions, even in the context of an action movie. 25 years after Plato first described prisoners watching shadows on a cave wall, the Wachowskis proved that his insights still matter. If you enjoyed exploring this idea, subscribe for more echoes of the past that shape our present.